You're gonna push your luck now. You just did your video. Uh-oh. I
What
think
did I do?
someone made the
See,
webinar live. So let's see. Hopefully the closed captions will come up. Always takes a minute and I get nervous something's going to happen, but hopefully you'll see a little red live button at the top of your screen. And that's how you can access the closed captions during the webinar. Okay, it looks like the closed captions are live. So welcome everyone to the first webinar of the new year. Now I know it feels like it's already been a whole year in these couple weeks, but this is really our first webinar of the statewide training initiative. So I'm glad so many of you can join us today. This is a continuation of the Tech Tuesdays series. We're already at session number 8. And these are always a lot of fun for me because they're more informal, like a fireside chat, just trying to share ideas. As we keep progressing through the pandemic, this is our second Tech Tuesday to focus on immigrants because there's so much to cover and they're particularly vulnerable during this COVID pandemic because of the nature of their work. They may be moving between states. They may be isolated, not connected to community services. So I thought it was really important to have a bunch of panelists join us today and give us their ideas on how to reach as many immigrants as possible, even if they're not Spanish speakers, or if they identify as LGBTQ+. But those are some populations that are harder to reach traditionally. So without further ado, I will have us start with Roberto Cruz, who is the Farm Worker Advocacy Director at Florida Rural Legal Services, and he's going to give us an overview of their Farm Worker Hotline. Welcome, Roberto.
Hello, Christy. Again, for everybody, my name is Roberto Cruz. I'm the Farm Workers Advocacy Director at Florida Rural Legal Services. And with me, we have attorney Carmen Santiago from Legal Services of Puerto Rico. I think, Carmen, that you're muted. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation with our PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a minute. All right. Well, we're going to begin the presentation with the Spanish outreach to farm workers during COVID-19. Now, this presentation is going to be delivered both by myself and by Carmen Sofia. So we're going to start with a description of our organization, Florida Rural Legal Services, Inc.
Roberto, real quick, it's showing a couple different screens. So if you can just click on the one where your PowerPoint is, that way it'll be, there you go.
Oh, got it?
I still see your other windows, so it might be a little hard for people to see just because it's kind of small.
Okay.
You usually have to choose which one you want to share.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Sorry. I should. Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
Got it. All right. Excellent. So let me go ahead and let me see if I can go back. Okay. So again, two presenters, myself and Carmen Sofia from Legal Services of Puerto Rico. And the focus is Spanish language outreach. And we're going to begin by explaining more or less my organization and how it's structured, so you'll understand the different facets to our outreach efforts. Now we have our executive director, Ms. Jaffe Pickett, along with our deputy director, Amy Burns. They are at the center of the outreach circle. Outside of the circle, you'll find two major players. First, Daniel Cruz, he's the managing attorney of our Fort Myers office, and he's in charge of the field operations when it comes to our outreach events. We have several people working our farm workers hotline, which is a phone number that farm workers can call and get an answer right away from an advocate. Now, we do have a regular line for farm workers, but this is a little bit more direct. I will give you the number for the hotline so you can have it and distribute it among the people that you serve. We also have two paralegals. We have our Creole speaker, Xavier Pierre, and we also have our Spanish outreach paralegal, Joe Romero. Now that's the operations side, again, where we send out the people to the field and where we answer any questions from clients through our hotline. Now, in that same circle, in red, you will also find our managing attorney for the farm workers unit, and that's Mr. Colin Abbott. Colin is an amazing advocate with tons of experience and education in the areas of immigration and labor law litigation, and he's in charge of two advocates, Gael Calles, who's joining us, and who is a great attorney with great results. She also speaks 3 languages, Spanish, English, and Creole, which is very important when it comes to our outreach efforts. And then Tia Huntley, who's also an experienced attorney in the area of farm worker rights. Now, during COVID, we found a couple of barriers to reach our farm worker community. First of all, if you know a little bit about farm worker law, you will understand that federal and state labor laws have limited protections to farm workers, which makes it a little bit more complicated to serve. We also have the fact that farm workers are excluded from the National Labor Relations Act, which means that they can't organize as a typical union can. To add to that, we have the social distancing protocols, we have the language barrier. Most of our farm workers live in remote rural locations. There's a lot of fear of retaliation, and the fear is real. If an employer or a supervisor finds out that a farm worker is contacting legal aid, there's a real threat that that supervisor or patron will take retaliatory actions. There's also discrimination based on race, nationality, and gender. Within each particular community, there's a lack of trust. You actually have to be invited in by somebody that the community trusts in order to get some access to the community. And they also lack access to technology. So taking all these into account, we try to prepare a social distance outreach plan that included upgrading our website, actually initiating the farm worker hotline, which was something that we didn't have before. And we started a media outreach through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and WhatsApp. Now, lessons learned. Out of our approach, we learned a couple of things. Number one, social media cannot replace field operations, meaning we haven't gotten a lot of response from most of the social media outlets. If you use WhatsApp for the clients, that's great, because usually our experience has been that farm workers do respond to WhatsApp. However, that's really the rule, not the exception. When it comes to other social media outlets like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, those are great for partnerships with stakeholders. So if the farm workers receive services from a farm worker organization, from a church, or another stakeholder organization, then those will be most of the consumers of that content from social media. The best way that we have found to reach a large number of farm workers has been through partnerships with the actual stakeholders, because they already have the network developed, and they can much better than we can. Just to give you an example, there's a farm worker organization in Immokalee, Florida, the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, or CIW. They have their own radio station. They do monthly meetings from different groups. One group focuses on the rights of women, another one on the right of workers, and they have meetings where there are more social gatherings than anything else. And that's the way that organization is able to take our message and spread it much better than we can with our own efforts. However, the main thing that we have learned is that language is really not an option. We created a flyer that was trilingual with English, Creole, and Spanish. When we took it to some of the stakeholders, they said, well, that really is not going to work. It's confusing. Just make whatever you're going to send out, if it's a flyer or some kind of information, make sure that you focus it on the language of your audience. So if it's a Spanish-speaking audience, just bring it in Spanish, So, that triplicates the effort, but it's really the best way to reach out. And one of the organizations that I've reached out to in order to help me with this specific area of Spanish outreach is the Legal Services of Puerto Rico. They've created their own marketing material in Spanish, and hopefully between their organization and ours, we can create some material that we can use and that we can distribute to you, so you can share it with your clients and with other service providers to the farm worker community. So Carmen, if you want to explain more or less about Servicios Sociales de Puerto Rico, Servicios Legales de Puerto Rico, I think everybody is eager to learn a little bit more about our sister organizations on the island. We can't hear you. You're muted. Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Oh no, she's unmuted, but we can't hear her. Sorry about that.
We can't hear you.
So far away.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and maybe go to another presenter, and maybe we can go back to Carmen at the end when we talk a little bit more about our networking efforts. So let me take myself out of the sharing.
Do that. Sorry about that, everyone. There's got to be at least one technical difficulty. All right. So, and Carmen, you might have to play around with your audio a little bit. So next up, we have one of our very own FLS, Ann Purville. She's brand new attorney, graduated during the pandemic, took the bar exam during the pandemic, and now is an Equal Justice Works Fellow, which, as most of you know, is a very prestigious fellowship to be given. So many kudos to Ann, and her project is focused on creating a medical legal partnership that targets Haitian farm workers. So as you can imagine, it's been extra challenging to start a medical anything right now during a pandemic. So Ann's just going to give us an overview of what she's trying to do. And of course, if anyone has contacts for her, please reach out to her and I can share her contact info. And before I forget, I just want to say that everyone on this call has been super helpful to Anne and to me in helping us figure out how to reach immigrants during these times. So thank you all, and I will pass it over to Anne.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for that introduction. Again, my name is Ann Peerville. I am a 2020 Equal Justice Works Fellow with Florida Legal Services, and I'm sponsored by the Florida Bar Foundation. My project is to create a medical legal partnership that focuses on Haitian farm workers in Central Florida by providing them legal aid services that helps with issues that affect social determinants of health. This project is very important to me because I myself am Haitian American and I'm a child of immigrants that are farm workers as well. So when creating this project, I wanted to come back into my community and help this vulnerable population because I know that they need resources. This project focuses on Central Florida and the 6 major counties in Central Florida because we realize that there's a need for the Haitian community in this area. Unlike South Florida, there aren't a lot of organizations or resources that focus on that population. And so there's many barriers that are unique to the Haitian population, language being one of those. So kudos to Florida Rural Legal Services for ensuring that things are translated in Haitian Creole. We find that that's usually a major issue with access to resources because there is a language barrier. Also, there's cultural differences. And so beginning this project in COVID has been difficult due to the medical issues and just the climate that we're in, but also because many organizations in Central Florida just aren't focused on this population. They haven't targeted this population. And so this project brings awareness to this community, but it also shows that there's a need. 40% of farm workers in Central Florida are Haitian. So the need is there, the population is there, they need resources. And I think COVID highlighted that it's not just language, access to technology, access to healthcare, access to government resources are real issues that this community faces every day, and they have been falling through the cracks. And so I hope that my project not only provides direct legal services, but also I'm able to build a coalition. I'm able to partner with the people on this panel with me, and we're able to build the resources and a coalition that even if I can't help them, we know where to go. We know organizations that are focused on them, organizations that have translated materials, organizations that have staff members that speak this language. And so that's really important to me. Thank you for the time. It's always great to connect with different resources just to bring awareness to this community and to help build this project. So if you're working with this community, if you know community advocates, doctors that are focused on the Haitian community, I love to partner with them. I love to introduce myself. My goal is to provide sources, different resources to the Haitian community through this project and to continue to build sustainability in Central Florida for the Haitian community. So thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. And welcome to the Florida legal aid world. We hope you stay with us forever. Some of us on the call have known each other for what seems like forever, but it's such a helpful group of advocates, and it's so nice to have people to reach out to when we have new attorneys who can use all the help they can get these days, starting during coronavirus and working remotely. Let's see if Carmen is able to share her audio. If not, we will move on to Colin. Let's see. Carmen, do you want to see if the audio is working? It worked during practice, but of course not now. All right, so Carmen, I'll try sending you your link again so you can try to just sign in again. We'll give that a try. So in the meantime, we will move along. Sorry about that, I muted myself. Welcome, Colin Abbott. He's the managing attorney of the Migrant Unit at Florida Rural Legal Services, and he's going to speak some more about reaching Haitian immigrants.
Thank you, Christine. Yes, hi everyone. My name is Colin Abbott, and as Roberto and Christine mentioned, I manage the farm worker unit for Florida Rural Legal Services statewide. I also have with me today Attorney Gael Kaulis, who's one of the staff attorneys that work side by side with me. And what I'd like to do today would be sort of to bridge the technology gap in relation to what Roberto began with, and then with Anne started, and continue on from that. So my background is I've been working in humanitarian immigration law for close to 23, 24 years with legal services all over Florida, and doing a lot of T's, U's, and VAWA self-petitions. And the whole issue with technology, and especially now with COVID and the ability to work with clients and get to clients and get clients to sign documents and to find clients when they disappear is a real concern we have, especially with COVID, where you can't really, send a advocate or paralegal out to look for them. And, that's been a task that sort of we as a group have dealt with. And Gael is here in person. I see her face. So Gael, would you like to sort of describe the work that you've done with the community, and then I'll come back and sort of bring it all back together again, sort of as a structured unit. Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Alrighty, I said today is a sad day because Sauveur Pierre, who is the paralegal that is usually stationed to the Haitian immigrants in Immokalee, is on annual leave. But I do say that almost everything that Florida Rural does with respect to the Haitian community is really has to be credited to Sauveur. Every single day from, I believe, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., there's a line of people waiting for him, particularly the unemployment. COVID hitting certain farm workers has been hard in the Haitian farm worker community. And our primary work for the last 7 months has been unemployment. Sauveur has gone through lengths to help these farm workers and helping them with their application, appeals, etc., especially since we do have that language barrier, we have a literacy barrier, and we also have a problem with lack of access to technology. For the past few months, the second project that we have been working on, doing outreach to the Haitian community has been our migrant helpline that, I am one of the Creole translators Sauveur also is working on. This is something that we are hoping to expand in the next 6 months to a year. We've been creating an outreach plan of how we plan to expand to the Haitian community. Particularly the plan in the next 6 months is to reach out to the churches. I thought this was a great idea, and this is actually an idea that the government, the Florida government, particularly the governor and the clinics, are doing for COVID. With related to reaching out to seniors. They're going to churches to be able to reach out to certain communities. So that was something and an idea that I have that I plan to hopefully fully execute and manifest in the next couple of months. We also have a plan on directly reaching out to the farm workers at bus stations, of course, when it's safe, and provided that we all received the vaccine. That's something that we would like to do, in addition to passing out flyers on this at the Sunday farmers market. We hope to continue to do more work centered on the Haitian farm worker community. We hope to expand our migrant hotline, and just to continue to provide the services to this community that's in need.
Thank you, Gael. And as a primer on the Haitian community in Florida, Florida I have the most recent stats here, is that 43.5% of all Haitian-born immigrants in the United States live in Florida. And you get the main areas, Miami, Orlando, Tampa. But if you do small city breakdowns of locations, in the top 3 are small cities. If you go on down to number 7 is Immokalee, number 9 is Belgrade, and number 15 is Lake Worth. These areas have communities of immigrants that have issues with technology, like most of rural Florida does. We have to go to them and find them. And one last caveat I want to mention today is what's going to happen next. We talk about COVID and we talk about immigration or ICE. Tomorrow it seems, and what we hear is that one of the first actions will be a possible amnestia for immigrants, and it could be up to 5 million people could be subject to this amnesty. And a technology issue which will come about because of that will be the whole issue of notarios or fake lawyers. And one of my backgrounds, which a lot of you will know from, you probably have met me through this, is that for 6 years I was the chair of the unauthorized practice of law for the Florida Bar. And this is going to be an issue that's going to be out there. You're going to have people going all over the state that are pretending they're lawyers, or lawyers that are not competent to do the work. And it's going to be a technology drain and a need to work with the different agencies and with all of us to be able to get the correct information out there. But I look forward to working with sort of all of us, because as a public interest lawyers, we're all one team. And at the end, I'll give you my email. I'll put it down in the chat box so that if anyone has any questions or ideas or concerns, freely ask. And I'm sure for Gael and Tia and the rest of our staff, we'll be there to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin and Gael. And really, everyone, please don't hesitate to reach out to these attorneys. They really do mean it. They're not just saying that. They'll do everything they can to help you and connect you. And if you can't reach them for some reason, you can always reach out to me and I'll do my best to connect you with them. Colin or Gael, could you speak a little bit to the issue of illiteracy and what a roadblock that is when everyone's working remotely and trying to use social media or WhatsApp to reach people?
Sure. One of the concerns we have is, of course, with the whole technology crunch that's out there now when it comes to, like Gael mentioned, with unemployment and with food stamps and with immigration, where there's a desire from the agencies to go electronic. And even with us, we have Zoom meetings now. We're doing this by Zoom. A lot of people out there don't have technology savvy, but a lot of them as well are illiterate. Gael can tell some stories about some of the clients that she's dealt with that, have, can't read or write. Gael?
Yes. So I would say the issue of, literacy just stems to much more the governmental structure of Haiti, just where education is not necessarily compulsory. So you have these people who do not possess this education, not because they don't want to, but because they've never had the opportunity. So at Legal Services, we have been tasked with overcoming that barrier. And you'll see it's really just, the way that you would speak to somebody who may not necessarily speak English proficiently, it's really finding oral ways to communicate with them, whether, that's just in person, whether that's on the phone, whether it's through our hotline. My history is, when I've had clients who have had that problem with literacy, it's really just, number one, never ever judging that they may not be able to read. Number two, asserting that we're going to be able to work with them despite this barrier, and really focusing on keeping the communications oral.
Thank you. That's just something else to keep in mind as we keep plodding through the pandemic. Thank you, Gail. We can see one more time if Carmen's back. I know her video's back, but there might be something going on with our connection to Puerto Rico. So close, but so far away. Still no audio. We will keep trying. We will keep trying. Hopefully she can join during the partnership part at the end. So I will move along to Laura Pichardo Cruz, who is the Executive Director of the Hope Community Center located in Orange County. And I'll let her tell you a little bit more about the Hope Community Center, but she's going to be talking to us about inclusive outreach for LGBTQ immigrants. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Christy. Hi, everybody. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see if this works. I was having some issues before.
We have to make sure you get the full array of tech difficulties during Tech Tuesday, just to get the full experience.
Yeah, it's still not popping up. Do you mind sharing it there on your end?
I'll do that on my end. And I won't be able to monitor the chat or anything because I'm on a tiny screen, so just be aware. I will try not to break anything.
So what I thought I'd do first is just to introduce y'all to Hope Community Center. I just joined Hope right just in time for COVID, so just in time for end times, I guess. I joined that staff in January of 2020 after working many, many years in legal services. So I feel like I'm back amongst my tribe here on this call. So Hope Community Center, let that go. Here we go. We are located in Orange County. If you can go to the next slide, Christy, please. We are located in Orange County. So we have two buildings in Apopka. Apopka is just outside of Orlando. We do serve folks from all around Central Florida. We are turning 50. 2021 is our 50th year as an organization here. And we began in 1971 as a farm worker ministry. At that time, the demographics of the community we served was Spanish-speaking immigrants, African-American farm workers, and Haitian farm workers. So it was a more mixed bag. We have organically through the years, in 2007, we officially became the Hope Community Center, and we have become primarily an immigrant rights organization, primarily serving Spanish-speaking Latinx immigrants, because demographically that's the community primarily in our part of the world there in Apopka. So we try to approach everything holistically. We do have immigration legal services. We have not had an attorney on staff for quite some time, but we have BIA accredited reps, and we do have a federal grant that allows us to run a citizenship program. And then we have community organizing and advocacy. We have a youth group, which in non-COVID times hosts anywhere between 60 to 80 youth from area high schools. Most of the youth that participate are from mixed status families, immigrant families. We have parenting classes, and then we also offer yearly, we offer 10 to 15 scholarships, typically for first-time college attendees. So we'll go to the next slide. So the first thing I want to say about being able to reach, being able to reach anybody, as you've heard from our other speakers, but being able to reach LGBTQ immigrants and LGBTQ people of color has been collaborations. We have created some very meaningful partnerships. A couple of the ones up there are older ones. For example, we have worked for many, many years historically with the Farm Worker Association of Florida. They are a statewide organization. They do have one office here in Apopka and then offices throughout the state of Florida, including Volusia County and Miami-Dade County. we have become a member of the Florida Immigrant Coalition down there at the bottom. We've been members of that coalition for several years. And then some of the other folks on this list are newer. Q Latinx is an organization here in Central Florida, which works to raise, I'm sorry if you hear that drilling noise. I came to my mom's apartment to flee the noise of my young children, and instead I wound up with power tools. So I'm sorry. Somebody's doing repairs next door. So Q Latinx was created after Pulse. In 2016, as many of you know, there was a terrible tragedy here at the Pulse nightclub. The majority of the victims, the 49 victims, were Latinx. The majority of those were Puerto Rican. Many others were immigrants. And so Q Latinx was born out of that horrible event. And that is an organization that works to create advocacy for Latinx folks who identify as queer. We've also made some meaningful connections with the center, which is our LGBT community center here in Orlando, which has for many years now been quite organized. And post-Pulse, we saw a lot of, again, if we could say there was any positive outcome from Pulse, there was this renewed sense of purpose, I guess, as far as the LGBTQ community came in here in Central Florida. One Orlando Alliance, also a creation post-Pulse. This is an alliance of organizations, much like Flick, but it's much more central to Central Florida, and it's all about organizations that work with the queer community or folks who identify as LGBTQ. And then, of course, Florida Rural Legal Services, our friends here who we've recently partnered with. So these are some of the folks. Oh, and 26 Health. 26 Health is an organization that's been here in Central Florida for about 6 or 7 years. They were known as Two Spirit Health in the past. Some of you may know them by that name. And they are pretty much a federally qualified health clinic lookalike. So they're a medical home for many of the area's more vulnerable residents. They specialize in medical and mental health access for members of the LGBTQ community. So they have very culturally competent providers. They've done a lot of work. Right after Pulse, they did a lot of work to provide mental health counseling to many people in the community. They've recently changed their name to 26 Health in the last, I believe, 2 years. But we have recently partnered with them. They've gotten a very generous grant through the Contigo Fund, which I'll talk about in a second, and Truist, to provide group therapy and individual therapy. And this is anyone really. This is a partnership they've created with us, Hope Community Center, and also the Farm Worker Association of Florida to provide these services. And so along with the therapy that they provide to folks who are referred from the community, they also do training to staff, and they'll do training on gender identity, transgender inclusivity, all kinds of issues, not only related to mental health generally, but also to, as far as issues related specifically to working with LGBTQ populations. And then, the last thing I'll say about that partnership is that those funds allowed them also to create a PFLAG group. PFLAG, of course, a very old group for parents and family members of LGBTQ folks. And this is the first time that the region will get a bilingual PFLAG group. And that's because through that, those funds, they've been able to create that. The start of us doing LGBTQ inclusive work really, really was very recent, I would say in the last couple of years. And if we can go to the next slide. So I mentioned the Contigo Fund as one of the primary funders of 26 Health's project with Hope and with the Farm Worker Association. So the Contigo Fund is also one of those things that was created post-Pulse. And this is a fund that these funds are awarded to organizations doing work with LGBTQ folks in Central Florida specifically. So through those funds, we were able to start a program called Story of Self. And story of self, the idea, there's two types of story of self, two different co-projects there. One is more specific to the LGBTQ experience, and the other is what's called the roots of migration. So talking about how is it that people come to this country, right? So I think it's one of the most important tools that that we have found that really works beyond obviously legislative advocacy, and many of us on this call obviously familiar with litigation. So there's all kinds of tools, but one of the things that we found is most impactful is the tool of storytelling and art and culture to really tell people's story. Like, why is it that people migrate and come so far and risk so much to come to the US, right? So story of self allows people, it trains people to become storytellers, and then it kind of lets them loose to talk to other folks. And it's a really amazing because it really turns, we like to think that it turns people from the community into almost like, I don't know, like faculty, community faculty, so to speak, right? So they become people that are, go on and tell their own story rather than rely on someone else to do it for them. So the next slide will tell you, and it's a little wordy, but I thought it was too good to cut up. So if you'll allow me, I will read this to you. The goal of this training is to empower individuals to own their stories, and through the telling of them, unite people and build cross-community power by illuminating the ways both the immigrant and LGBTQ+ communities suffer the effects of institutional systems of oppression. In this one-on-one training, participants learn how to craft their stories in order to most effectively share them with different audiences in order to break down barriers that have been built through ignorance created by systemic racism, homophobia, and xenophobia in both the LGBTQ+ community and immigrant communities. There are currently 2 curricula offered: Migration Story of Self and LGBTQ Story of Self. So again, just something else that we thought served as another important tool. We, like I said in the very beginning, we like to think of ourselves as a holistic organization. And so this seemed like a really good addition to that set of tools. And one thing I didn't mention, but is really important now that I'm talking about another way of advocacy, is that we are a service learning organization. So we have an entire program that brings college and university students to actually live and work with immigrant families in Apopka. So they spend several days, a week or so, living with this family, cooking with them. They get up early in the morning, they go to work with them at area nurseries, they break bread with them at night. And this program, which has really grown over the last 2 decades, again, is just one more advocacy tool. You have young people that stick with us, stick with Hope for many, many years after the fact because of those personal relationships they created through the service learning program. So anyway, that's us. That's Hope's work with LGBTQ immigrants. I would say the primary thing that's helped us reach so many people have been the fantastic partnerships we've had along the way. And I think later on, we'll talk a little bit more about the what we hope to do with Florida Rural Legal Services.
That's a perfect segue. Thank you, Laura. Get back to all of our pictures. We'll see if Carmen's with us yet, but our last section is about partnerships. Surprise! So we'll be talking about the partnerships between Florida Rural Legal Services and Hope Community Center, as well as between Florida Rural and Legal Services of Puerto Rico. So I hope we have Carmen with us now, but welcome, Carmen Santiago.
Did you hear me?
Yay, we can hear you.
That's all the tech guys. I don't know what happened to my computer, but for some reason it decided today that the speaker couldn't work. So I couldn't figure it out.
I'm sorry we couldn't hear you before, but welcome.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I'll hand it over to you, Roberto, to speak about partnerships.
Yeah. Well, partnership for me, it's very important. I have been working partnership with different programs across the mainland. We have a case that we are working with South Carolina Legal Services that we filed in the District Court of Puerto Rico, even though we don't have a success and it was dismissed. We end up filing in South Carolina. It's pending of a motions to dismiss from the defendants, but we are working on that case. I'm also works with New Jersey Legal Services with attorney Keith Talbot. He helped me a lot with the case that we prevailed for employment in the New Jersey Superior Court. A claimant from Puerto Rico that in the telephone hearing, he was denying of an appropriate translator for the hearing, and the recording was very poorly. So through Keith Talbot, we end up in the Board of Appeals and then in Superior Court. We are waiting for the remand, and I have been following up with the agency directly, but since we are in the pandemic and the priority is the COVID claims, it's been, the hearing was on August 25th, and since then we haven't had a hearing, a rehearing for the claimant, and I've been following up with the agency. But you know, it is what it is, but we will keep fighting for that claimant who has been in Puerto Rico and haven't received the opportunity to be heard adequately in his own language with a translator that translates appropriately. That's one of the situations that I've been experiencing a lot. Most recently, I was representing a claimant from Puerto Rico in one of the states. I don't want to name names, but when I heard that translator translate, sometimes I don't want to be rude or anything, but it's hard to hear them translate not properly. Particularly for Spanish-speaking claimants, that we have so much diverse. In Espanol, we have the Boricua Español, and you have the Mexicans and the Salvadorians and the Guatemalans, and you know, it's a variety of different, you know, dialects or languages, and it's really hard, and you have to intervene and say to a translator, hey, you know, you are not properly address that translation, so could you please rephrase that? And sometimes it's not good because you tend to be like a bad attorney or something, but you were only try to represent the best you could do to your client. So but also I also have with Greg Shell, who was retired now, but he still helped me a lot with a lot of migrant local workers who had problems with all past situations. I keep periodically, you know, try to have his advice because he has so many experience, so much years of experience with this program. And I always like to learn from the colleagues who've been, like, you know, like we said in Puerto Rico, ustedes molieron el vidrio. You start and build everything. You start the programs in the 70s and keep doing this throughout the years. So I always appreciate that assistance of those colleagues like Keith and the rest of them. But also we wanted to, Roberto approached me to do this collaboration among the two programs. Boricuas are not the priority workers for Florida agricultural industry. They used to be in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but not anymore. But if I could be helpful with whatever we could do to educate them and give them access to all these new barriers that we have now. The interesting thing about the COVID-19, particularly for me, is that I've been having requests for services for a lot of workers, particularly for unemployment benefits, since most of these states are moving to online services. And our agricultural workers, particularly the 50 plus workers, um, have a low level of scholars, of education. I've been encountering workers that only have fifth grade, that which to my surprise, it's still happening here in Puerto Rico. And they do have a, a cell phone with, with every advanced feature, but they don't know how to file online. They couldn't remember their usernames and password, and some accounts are if you file a claim, you use your email account and you have a password, but if you are filing weekly, you need another username and username and password. And they are not as skilled as we are, that when this internet thing started, we already were attorneys, or either we were studying law. So we're used to this. So, and the interesting thing is that I've been filing claims and served as an open way for them to not be afraid to file the claims online, even though they are not in front of a computer. I do that weekly for them and explain to them that I only get access to their online account if they call me and are in the phone with me. But if they don't call me, I couldn't get online for them and do their weekly certifications. So in terms of outreach here in Puerto Rico, our lockdown starts, we were the first to lock down, and we couldn't go out for outreach. But the important things, I get advantage of contact all the clients that I was having cases with me, and I contact them to tell them that I was working remotely from home, that if they had situations, they could contact me. I have a mobile phone for the project that it's available, like the hotline of Florida. It's almost 24/7. And they know that if they couldn't reach me, as soon as I have the time, I could return their calls. So I have a laptop with me all the time. So if I had to do an intake, I could do it during the weekends, and working from home. So I also try to do Facebook Lives during the pandemic. I contact as many radio stations as I could be. Puerto Rico, even though it's small, we are 135 miles. We have like 110 radio stations between FM and AM. And I start contacting them and talk about the pandemic situation for workers, for agricultural workers. Remember, agricultural workers are essential workers. And since they are, the lockdown do not apply to them. So they have to keep working. But we also wanted them to be safe and sound and healthy. And I started to create this questions with the host of the program that I could find time for it. And I send like 10 questions, short questions that could be answer easily, and they could be aware that even though the lockdown doesn't apply to them, that they have the right to ask for what is the employer COVID-19 protection plan, and also the equipment. Many organizations here in Puerto Rico, especially the health organizations, start distributing in the fields also PPE, which is the protection equipment for the workers, and also nonprofit organizations do that too. What I do usually with the outreach and the orientations that I do, or the Facebook Live, or the social media post that we do frequently, is that I divided among what is the situation now with the worker. For example, last week it was the recruiting process for moving again to the States to be for the season. And I created a post about the new rule as of 26th of January 2021, that they need a COVID test, a negative COVID test of at least 72 hours before boarding the plane to go to the mainland. And even though if they are not required to, it's important for them, the necessity of having it. For me, that was very important. And also the importance of the identifications method that they are using, passports, real ID. It is important for the workers to know that if the due date of their identifications would be in the middle of the season, before they leave Puerto Rico, they had to have a renewal of their identification. So I created that small short, because I know that our clients are not the readers that, if you put it a long video or a long story, they are not going to read it. They are going to look at it and feel tired. They didn't read their notifications from the unemployment determinations decisions. So we have to be aware of that. And since I am myself and I in the Puerto Rico Legal Services, I also I have contacts with the Department of Labor. As soon the lockdown came, I also contact all the office of the Department of Labor personnel to tell them that I was available. If they know some worker that needed assistance, I will be more able to assist them or work with them. Many of the claimants refer from the Department of Labor, since, with this pandemic, the Department of Labor whole personnel is working on initial claimants, our determination of eligibility of people who are not yet receiving their funds. So they don't have time to, some worker contact them to say that they need help with their claim that is not in Puerto Rico, that it's an interstate claim. So I've been filling that, space, that gap that it's been very needed for the migrant agricultural workers. And also very important that the local workers that are returning this season, that probably, as I see it, is probably it's going to start earlier, because I think Fat Tuesday is on February 16. Usually that time of year, it's hotter than the average year. So probably the season would start earlier. So I'm starting now to, in all the radio stations that I've been contacted to talk or oriented the workers, I always talk about OPA, MESPA, and also we have a local law, who's local law 87th, that allow corporations, foreign corporations, to come here to recruit it. They have to register with the local Department of Labor, and it's very similar to MESPA or OPA. They need to comply with with the requirements of register, inform what is the way they're going to recruit it, and also the housing, the transportations arrangement that they are going to do for the workers. So this is recruiting season. I think it's important that we emphasizes on the rights of the workers, and also the importance that not also that they maintain healthy and safe, because they are not going to be nearby a family member, and if they get sick, they're all by themselves there. They need to provide a contact that could be reached if they have an emergency, to his employer, so that employer could somehow, if there's something wrong happen, hopefully don't, but if something wrong happens, someone could contact their families to be aware about our workers, that they are needed to be healthy, and also to the importance that the employer, depending on the state, have to comply with a COVID protection plan to protect the workers. That's very important for me. Last year, I did it like when you hit a maraca in every station. I was emphasizing in that, because I just wanted to be that I just wanted to that they to know that they need to be aware that even though this is a viruses that we don't see it, it's like varicella, like smallpox, that we don't see it, but it's very contagious. So we also we have partnership with the Migrant Health Organization here in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico have 6 organizations that provide service for migrant workers. And I try to reach them for the benefits of the workers, and I always tell them that we are working remotely, even though our offices are closed. I use WhatsApp with my clients also to send documents and to contact our services. They are not
We're a little over time, sorry.
Oh.
I wanted to give you a few extra minutes since we had so much technical difficulties, but thank you so much for bringing us the perspective from Puerto Rico, and thank you for all the work you're doing down there. As everyone can tell, the key thing as we're all working remotely is reach out to each other. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to reach out and use all the tools at your disposal and form new partnerships. I mean, this is the time to do it, right? When we're not doing our typical outreach, it's the time to reach out to each other and see how we can work together. So thank you, all of you, so much for being panelists today. And thank you for everyone who joined us. The CLE has been approved today. The CLE number is 4400. A very short one today. Again, the CLE number is 4400, and it's been approved for 1 technology credit. And you'll see in the chat box everyone's contact information. So I'll leave that up for a minute if anyone needs the contact information. I don't see any questions, but if you have any questions after the webinar, you can always reach out to me if you need answers, or if you need to connect to anyone. So thank you all again so much for joining today. Take care and stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.